Hey, and welcome back. So my next adventure brought me towards Karratha. So I thought I'd throw this in at the start of the video as I don't have any footage to go with it. But back in Carnarvon, I got a new battery for my car because the one that I did have, I was told had a bad cell, and that's why I was getting a flat battery. So I bought a new one, and I called up the store that I got the battery from back in Perth, and they said that their store in Karratha would be able to issue a refund under warranty for me. So when I got to Karratha, I gave them the battery. They needed to keep it for a day to charge it and actually test the battery before doing the refund, and it came back as fine. So I wasn't able to get a refund for my battery because the issue didn't seem to be the battery. So one of the blokes at the store came out and actually had a look at my car, and he had a look, and I've got a secondary battery in my engine bay that came with my car. So it's probably around like over 3 years old by now. And he reckons that battery is the one that's causing issues. And basically he put a battery tester on both batteries, and that one did come up as basically old and needing changing. And when it's been tested in the past, I've been told it's been fine. However, I know a store back in Perth that I'd brought it to that tested the batteries. They didn't remove the positive lead from that battery, so it would have still been getting some kind of feed from my main one. So this guy actually removed that positive lead to test it. So he was very nice. He's just like, look, I don't want to try and sell you anything, like go away and think about it. However, I do think that your issue that you're having is actually because you've got this second battery that is old and it's draining on the main one. So he wasn't pushy about it at all. He said multiple times, like, I'm not trying to sell you anything. And on top of that as well, like, I'd told him how I've had a few people look at my car. I've been given a lot of like bad advice, and a lot of people have done the wrong thing by me. And he had said, like, you just sounds like you have been given like a lot of bad advice, and I just want to give you some good advice. Ended up buying a new secondary battery, and hopefully that sorts my car. However, I am actually in Broome now recording this, and I've got my car booked in to have some other little bits and pieces looked at. But I've lost my train of thought. Oh yes. So got my car booked in to have some things looked at, but one thing I did notice, I've only noticed it once since I've changed my battery over, but when I start my car, I was getting a bit of a high-pitched noise from that alternator again, but it's only happened once. But I did mention that to the mechanics that I'm bringing my car to. So yeah, that's a little update on how the battery is going and how my car's going, and without further ado, enjoy the next chapter of my travels. Day one in Karratha was WA Day, so I got to go to the WA Day festival, had some dinner there, listened to live music, and then later on got to watch the fireworks. So yeah, it was a really awesome start to my stay in Karratha, which turned out to be a couple of days of rest and just recovery before continuing my journey. On day two, we explored Nunjali Burrup Peninsula, where we went swimming at Harrison's Cove, and also got to have a look at all the rock art in the area. A lot of this rock art is very old, some of it being over 35,000 years old. This is Shell Pool. It's a small but quite deep little pool in the national park that Michelle brought me to. She had stumbled upon it walking through the national park one day, and we came across all these frogs on the wall and in the crevices, so had a bit of a photo shoot with them, as well as a couple of other critters as well. I've never seen so much rock art in one place, and it's so raw and beautiful. It was such an honour to stand amongst such a spiritual place of history. I truly hope that this place continues to be preserved and so well looked after, kept in its natural form. Karratha and Denham ended up being quite meaningful to me because back in 2020 I actually visited Denham, and you can see I took these photos next to the red dog statue, and I've recreated them because you can see just in the photos how much I had lost my spark back 6 years ago and how different I am now. My soul has just returned to my body, and I just know I'm on the right path. And past me that sat at that statue 6 years ago would be so happy to know where I am now. On my last day in Karratha and Denham, I went for a bit of a solo adventure through the national park in search of a watering hole that Michelle had found once when she first moved to the area and hasn't been able to find again. I didn't find it either, but I found more rock art and more beautiful little shallow watering holes. Next stop was Aborigional. Before reaching Aborigional, I had one night camped on the side of the road. Unfortunately, before pulling into my campsite, a kangaroo jumped in front of my car, and I got out and checked on it, and it was still alive and in a very sorry state. So I had to put it down myself, as there was nothing else I could have done. There's no one I could have called, and even if there was, it probably would have died before anyone else could have got to it. So I'm not going to go into details of how I did that, because it wasn't a very pleasant experience, but yeah, it did need to be done. After that incident, it was quite hard for me to get into enjoying Aborigional. However, being in such a beautiful place, in a matter of time, I did manage to find my feet and enjoy what this beautiful national park had to offer. Alrighty, so I have arthritis and I'm on a hike and my right knee has started having a bit of a sharp pain in it, which is usually the sign that it's starting to flare up. But also my left Achilles is now also got a really sharp pain in it. When I'm walking, I've been in some really cold water, so the cold can, usually that can trigger it. So that's why I always carry my hiking sticks with me. Most of the time they stay in the bag, but for in the case of a flare-up, I use those, and I've also got anti-inflammatories, so I'll probably take one of those as well, because I've got a few steps and ladders to climb up as well. So wish me luck. I haven't made it very far. I'm having a lot of trouble with my ankle. My right knee seems to be behaving itself, which is good because I'm needing that to get myself up steps. But the left Achilles is not happy. It's like a really sharp pain, and it seems to be getting worse. So another thing I carry with me besides my walking poles and my anti-inflammatories, which I've taken and have been using, is sports tape, so kinesiology tape, and scissors. So we are going to tape up my ankle to give it a bit of extra support and hope that that gets me where I need to be. It's very frustrating having something like this, because although I'm so grateful that my body allows me to do these things, go on hike and see awesome and amazing places, when I get a flare-up, if that happens while I'm doing something like that, it becomes extremely debilitating. And there hasn't really been anyone around me at the moment since it flared up, but I have just been swearing and grunting and groaning because every time it flares up, that's just, I guess, how I deal with it. I make noise. So hopefully this tape is enough, because I've got a bunch of stairs to climb, very vertical ones as well. So I'm a bit nervous for that, but there's some people behind me, and I'll get up it. We'll manage. Hoping this sticks because my foot has been wet. I'm doing a terrible job. The paper tore, so it isn't coming off very good. Okay. So need it stretched. Hurts just bending my foot in that position. Alrighty. So kinesiology tape, you heat it up, and that helps the glue stick. It's not going to stick to my foot very well because my foot has been wet, so the skin is very soft and probably not fully dry. But it's the heel, kind of ankle area that I want it to stick to the best. The foot is just kind of part of what holds the tape in place, I guess, when you put it on the whole tape. And it can also help with the fascia at the bottom of the foot, but it's mainly that ankle area that I need. Even doing this is probably good, getting a bit of blood flow into that area. Alrighty. Then I reckon I'm going to do 3 strips of kinesiology tape. I'm going to have to put some more in my bag after this. If I had the double width kinesiology tape, I would probably use that because I do want some better coverage than what I'm getting with this stuff. So we round off the edges of kinesiology tape because it can irritate your skin and cut into it. So round edges helps prevent that, looks after yourself better. Someone comes along, I am blocking their way currently, but they'll be able to get around me.
hopefully having the tape on as well will help warm it up a bit, because I think a part of the problem on this is I've been walking through water and swimming, and the water is very cold. So most people that have chronic pain issues, especially to do with joints, will know that cold doesn't really work. But this isn't a joint issue, this is the Achilles. But if you think about muscles as well, the cold will contract muscles. So, you know, if you're walking and hiking and stuff like that, cool, you're using your muscles, you're warming them up. You go into water, it contracts them. And for someone that has a condition where their nervous system is quite sensitive, that could put the body into a bit of a shock like state, and hence alert it. You know, like me, I've got an autoimmune disease, so my immune system kind of gets fired off, you know, at things that aren't even an issue. But if my nervous system's kind of gone like, oh, you know, we've just been put in this like cold state, we need to switch on, you know, it can just cause issues. I don't know fully how it all works. All I know is I experience stuff like this. I don't know, I'm yapping. Alright, I've definitely overdone the tape a bit, but hopefully that will be alright to give me the support I need, and hopefully just sitting down as well for a little bit was enough to give it a rest. So taped off the ankle. Hopefully we're good to keep going, so let's give it a go. I would like to film how I walk around on these you know, using my walking poles, but it's just not really doable. I need two hands, and I'm not gonna put my camera down, film myself walking and struggling, and then go and pick up my camera and have to do that part again. So yeah. So basically, gotta just take it one step at a time and use the handrails to help pull myself up. For this section of the hike, I put my walking poles back in my bag so I could use my arms to help myself get up this part of the trail. So basically, the more pressure I can take off that sore ankle, the better. So I'm constantly stepping up with my right leg, as that is the leg that has nothing wrong with it. My right knee was a little bit twingy, but it seemed to be holding out for me. And yeah, I would just use my hands on a rock to just kind of help pull myself up. The next day I retaped my Achilles, as the tape I had done the day before was a bit rough on the trail. So I kept that tape on for the remainder of my hiking in Aborigional, and luckily I had no more pain in my ankle for the rest of my stay there. I'd just like to add that in this video where I'm swimming in this beautiful water by myself, in my head I was constantly fearing that a crocodile was going to come eat me, even though there's no crocodiles in Aborigional. So just a little reminder that, you know, all these beautiful places and videos, like, it's not as always tranquil and relaxing as it may seem, especially when you do deal with a bit of anxiety and intrusive thoughts. It's where traveling alone can be quite challenging, because if I had someone with me in that scenario, I'd be completely fine swimming in that water. But that's one reason I am doing this trip by myself, is because I'm trying to overcome a lot of fears that I do face when I'm by myself. There were quite a few spots in Aborigional where they advised not to swim because the waterfalls weren't running and therefore there was stagnant water. So that was quite unfortunate, but I was there during the kind of recommended months of the year, so I think it just depends what you're going for, but I'd love to go back during a time where it's a bit wetter in the season so I can see some of the magnificent waterfalls flowing. Knox Gorge was such a beautiful hike. At the very end there was a little section that you could swim in with a flowing waterfall. There were a couple of bigger pools along the way throughout the gorge. However, they didn't have running water, so I didn't really feel like swimming in them. A lot of the tracks through Aborigional were much like this one, where you're climbing over rocks. Sometimes you're kind of trudging through a bit of swampy ground as well. I love hikes like this. I love walking through just raw nature rather than the man-made paths, and it's so much better for our bodies as well. Bit of a shout out here to my barefoot shoes. I get so many comments on my shoes when I'm going for hikes. Not just hikes, honestly, just wherever I wear them, which is a lot of places. But they're just so good for your feet, and it just makes navigating this kind of terrain so much easier, as your foot can just mold to the terrain, and your proprioception is just so much better because you can feel more of what's under your feet. The entrance into this gorge was probably one of the most technical parts of a trail that I've done, as it was a steep climb up very loose rocks. Again though, I really enjoy the challenge. I love coming across these natural paths. However, I was thinking to myself, if I do have an arthritis flare up on a path like this, I'm not entirely sure how I'd actually get myself out. I'd probably be taking an anti-inflammatory and having to wait until everything just settles down, but you know, sometimes a flare-up can last multiple days. However, if I lived in fear of my next flare-up, then I would never get to see these beautiful places, so I like to live my life day by day and try my best to listen to my body and prevent a flare-up from happening in the first place. Fernpool was definitely the busiest place that I had visited, as it's probably the biggest swimming spot and the most accessible one in Aborigional. You can also get under the waterfall, which is really cool. Over the last 2 days, I ran into the same couple quite a few times on some of my hikes, and we were talking at Fernpool how we were all thinking about doing Mount Bruce the following day, so we decided to link up. And that night they also messaged me saying, hey, do you want to do it for sunrise, as they had met another chick who was planning on doing it for sunrise. So the four of us met at the bottom of Mount Bruce around 4:30 in the morning, and we started hiking the mountain. Along our hike, another bloke who was also hiking it ended up joining up with us, and there ended up being 5 of us at the top, having good laughs and just enjoying ourselves as the sun came up. It was such a cool experience. Mount Bruce is the second tallest peak in WA, and there was also a little notebook kept in a plastic container under a rock up there that we found, so we got to record our names and just put little messages in it as well. So it was such an awesome experience. The Hammersley Gorge walk to Spa Pool was the last destination in Aborigional to visit, and I'm so grateful that I made it to this spot. It's so beautiful and unique, and at the very end of the trail, walking up the steps to my car, my right knee started twinging, showing signs of a flare-up. So if I had done any more hiking, I probably would have ended up a bit debilitated for a couple of days. However, luckily I was finished with Aborigional, and I've spent the last couple of days just relaxing and letting my body rest.